students who've had sex with their teachers. At what point did your relationship turn physical? How do you feel about it now? Most of my teachers have ducked me. When I was 17 I got the chance to go to school in the States, born in Greenland, and so I had a senior year here. The English teacher had just gotten the job there according to the other kids my age. But what happened was I needed help just speaking and learning English better. So she said she'd help me out. I'd come in after school and we'd do the flashcard BS, and eventually she started asking me what I thought about American girls and if I prefer blondes, brunettes and etc. Questions slowly got more personal until she gave me her phone number. Told me to call her at 8 and she'll have plans. I was confused as hell. But when I got to her house my other head took over the thinking. P.S. If I messed up any grammar please excuse it. I didn't pay a lot of attention during the lessons. Edit. A word. I'm a teacher. If this gets any serious answers, all I can say is oh cute, oh cute, oh cute, oh cute. Not a teacher but a teacher's assistant. I was a junior in college and she was in her first year of grad school, doubling as a TA. So basically larger classes were always split into smaller sections that had to meet once a week outside of the normal class period. Anyways, I was always pulling solid grades, sat in the front, and would respond to her questions. I later found out that she hated public speaking and was always nervous when she stood in front of our section, so she really appreciated my participation. Plus I was always making jokes and she liked the funny ones. I go to her office hours one day. She helps me out with the paper I was doing and we go eat afterwards. We talked mostly about school and career goals, but also some stuff about the difficulties of dating. And then we go get drinks. And then she was getting way flirty and touching my arms and legs. I end up walking her to her apartment building. She tells me to come up and have a nightcap with her. Halfway through she asks if I'm ever gonna make a move. I put down my drink, leaned over and kissed her. We wound up having sex shortly after and we kept it up for the rest of the school year. And yes, I got an A in the class. She got the D. TLDR. Slept with my TA for being an active participant in class. After graduation, I hooked up with my old history teacher a few times. I frequently would watch his daughter when he had to work late. I was invited to go camping with the two of them. Let's have a drink to celebrate the beginning of summer. Changed quickly. I ended it very abruptly when his daughter started calling me mom. A couple I know met as teacher, M, and student, F, at graduate school. According to her, she didn't ask him out until after the grades were in. According to him, she needed an A, but it's my dad, so he's probably kidding. I had sex with a high school guidance counselor, but I don't know if that's what you're looking for. I'm going to be one of those people who answers the question even though it didn't happen to me. There was a girl at my high school who was known to be in a relationship with one of the male teachers. No one really knows if they were in love or just ducking, but she always hung out with a group of friends in his classroom. Basically at every break that class wasn't going on. I guess at some point she started hanging out there by herself as well, and things turned into something more than just friendly. I hung out in there a few times during lunch and they would make blatant sexual remarks to each other, touch each other in ways that were way past a line of student-teacher, and just overall make it obvious that something was going on. The administration eventually questioned the teacher about it and he didn't come back the next year. And TLDR, girl hung out with male teacher and eventually ended up ducking him, then made it well known to the whole school. After I graduated HS I saw my history teacher at a bar and he bought me a drink. Took me back to his place and we ducked. I snuck out the next morning and I haven't heard from him since. I had sex with my high school gym teacher after I graduated. I was really overweight and just not pleasant to look at in high school, but I had a huge crush on him. After graduation I lost weight and looked him up on Facebook. I said we should meet up for dinner, so we did. I told him I used to have a gigantic crush on him, which he didn't believe. He said I should go to his place for dinner sometime, and of course I was all for it. I get there and he made a pizza and we had some beer and watched TV on the couch for what seemed like an eternity, just talking and joking. That led to cuddling and while my hand was on his D. He led me to the bedroom and we proceeded to have some of the best sex I've ever had in my life. Since then he's texted me randomly wanting more. We've exchanged pictures and videos and sometimes called each other for the big O but never got together again. Conquest complete. Do professors count? You didn't specify as to what type of teacher, so I'm just going to assume so. In grad school I was a research assistant for a professor in her late 30s. Brilliant woman. Gorgeous redhead. Lots of sexual tension. You could tell there was mutual attraction. Our relationship gradually veered into the personal. We would get lunch, drinks together, talk about personal things, deep it like the purpose of life. Her husband, also a professor, was away for the week on conference. We had a meeting to discuss a project of mine. She rescheduled to her home. I had an idea what might be up. I arrived to a cliche. She opened the door in a robe, naked underneath. Dropped the robe once we got inside. She looked me in the eyes and asked me if I wanted to go to bed with her. We had a sexual relationship for the 2 years until I graduated. I graduated and haven't seen her since. A career took me away. How do I feel about it now? Don't think of it that often. When I do, I miss her. As a person, not just for sex. One of the few people I've actually considered to be a friend in my life. One of the 3 women I've developed feelings for. Edit. And this is now my highest rated comment. Uni professor. Saw this guy on Grindr when I lived on campus and thought his body looked pretty hot. Messaged him. Said he was a prof on campus, so I had to send my pic first. Found out the DPT he taught in and it was mine. Sent my picture on the promise he would. Sent it. Says he never realized I was bi. And he always thought I was fit. Sent his. Says bring a towel and meet at X office in 15 minutes. Met in his office. Sucked me off. Ducked him. Start of a great FWB relationship. Probably should be marked. Serious. Liars of Reddit. Tell me a lie. Bit late to the game. I was 17. Legal age of consent in Ireland where I am from. She was a 23-year-old 5'2" beautiful French teacher. Bonus points as she was actually French. I was quite good at French, and when we had practice sessions for our oral exam, speaking French to an examiner, I always flirted like crazy with her. On the last day of school I got to talking to her and told her that I needed a coffee and to come with me. She did and we hit it off. We met up several times, and the night before she had to head back France I made my move and ended up doing the diddly all night. Rumors got spread around as we were seen together several times and the whole town knew in the end. Ended up going out for about 6 months before I met my current girlfriend in university. It came to an end and I still look fondly back at our time together. As a bonus fact, I am now a teacher at the school where this all happened, and all the teachers always tease me about it in the staff room. I don't know if this fits here, but had sex with my ex-teacher. Not a student. I'm actually a teacher. I'm pretty sure the guy was retarded, and he had some odd deformities. Yellowish skin, weird boxy head and scrawny limbs. Definitely not my proudest moment. But due to my weight he was all I could get, so why the hell not? Also, he lived in a pineapple under the sea. OP just wants fat material. Here's my thread. This happened a little over 2 years ago. I was the teacher, 25 years old and teaching ESL while working on my masters. In walks this 20-year-old Brazilian girl who proceeded to eye-duck me all semester. Couldn't even look at her. I would be trying to teach, scanning the room and making eye contact, and here she is waving her leg up and down, finger in mouth. The other students probably thought, oh, absent-minded professor lost his train of thought again, as I'm sweating bullets and trying to get my pulse rate down. At this point I knew it was gonna go down eventually. The day the semester ended we took the Pound Town Express for 18 straight hours. We're now happily married and expecting our first child in November. Edit. Clarification and a hyphen. Thanks you Razy. I'd been working for a professor as an undergrad for a couple years, and we'd be close. It wasn't a sexual relationship, but there weren't ever any boundaries. I'd been working for him for about a month when the topic of my birth control came up, and he chastised me for not knowing what chemicals were involved, how my birth control worked, etc. It was one of the most awkward conversations ever, because he's my boss. but he felt that it was important I know. Fast forward to senior year. 2 years after being hired, I've recently broken off my engagement. Fiance had expected me to move back to my hometown and be a housewife. That was simply a no-go. I was feeling rebellious and decided to get my nipples pierced. The piecing itself went fine, but 2 days later I realized I was in shock and needed help. I had 0 friends, no car to go to ER in. Professor had put himself through grad school as a physical therapist and figured he had the medical training to help. He chastised me for deforming my body, but dressed the wounds, kissed the top of my head, and left. Somehow, that response meant I needed to chase him. I think the attraction was somewhat mutual because he kept coming by to check on the healing progress. We started watching movies together, then cuddling, then having sex. The relationship lasted 6 years until cancer took him. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him and miss him terribly. This thread has thoroughly convinced me to be very wary of marrying a teacher. There are too many stories of cheating. I never had sex with a teacher, but I am pretty sure I turned down a chance with my high school librarian. She had just gone through a nasty divorce and was now banging my math teacher. I had to complete some volunteer hours to graduate, so I popped into the library to see if she had any work for me. She said she had a storage room that needed organizing. So she leads me to the storage room and closes the door behind her. The whole time she was being kind of flirty, but I was a pretty social guy and was used to people being like that, and was probably a little oblivious too. Well, anyways, she tells me what she needs done, which is probably only about 30 minutes to an hour worth of work. I need a bunch of hours, so I was like, is there anything else I can do for you? She puts her hand on my shoulder and says, what were you thinking of? All the while she's giving me some serious duck me eyes. My head was racing. She's banging my math teacher and the whole school knows. Also, I had this feeling she just wanted me to say something so she could feel wanted and then she would shoot me down. So I made a quick decision to not pursue and said, well, I need lots of hours and this isn't much work. Is there any more work to get done around here? She backed off and said, not really, just come see me when you're done here. When I was done the work about 30 minutes later, I went to her office and she wrote me a note for 10 hours of volunteer service and thanked me for the help. I went and told my experience to my friends and they all told me I should have gone for it. I probably should have. Oh well. The only thing I regret is that I'll never know what her intentions were. To be completely honest, at the time I felt like the king of the world, the most baddest man on the planet. I had done what every kid in our school was dreaming of. I had sex with the hottest teacher in school. This was only 4 years ago and now I feel like the victim of a really ducked up emotional circus in which I was severely blackmailed and brainwashed into thinking I was in love with a married woman 25 years older than me. That Veronica Vaughn was one piece of ace. Trust me, I know from experience. Don't know if I should even bother with the trouble of telling y'all, but duck it. I'm currently married to the woman that was, at one time, my high school English teacher, AMA. I dated my college professor. I went to his office hours any chance I could, even though I didn't need to. It was pretty obvious there was a mutual attraction. We would end up talking instead of studying, which quickly turned to flirting. I can't specifically remember how it became physical, but when I look back it's almost like a cliche movie scene. We sorta awkwardly looked at each other, then started making out. I don't know if it was him who went for it, or me, or both of us at the same time. If anyone wants more details into our relationship, I'll be happy to post. But I really don't like thinking about those times, especially if no one really cares. Not surprising that it did not turn out to be successful in the end. A lot of pedophilia and abuse. I clicked this with the horny young man brain, and left being reminded of how horrible and manipulative people can be. When I was 17 I had a short sexual relationship with my high school English teacher. She was the hot teacher, but in reality, look back now, probably the 6th of May 2010 at most. She lived in my neighborhood and if occasional run into her walking her dogs and talked frequently outside of school. I went to her house a couple times to help her with small tasks or she'd invite me over for lunch, dinner on the weekends sometimes. One of those times I was sitting on her couch and she sort of just got close to me and we started kissing and went from there. At the time I just felt like, oh yeah, I'm mature, she sees me as an equal. She was probably late 20s, so I just thought, oh yeah, I'm the man. No, she wants to hang out with me and have a relationship with me. Again, I was 17 at the time and was in long-term relationships through high school, so I fell in love and thought it would be a long-term thing. She quickly, I think, realized what would happen long term if she kept this up, but I swore I would never tell anyone because I loved her. I never did, except to my friends who didn't believe me anyways. Thinking back, she's definitely got some things wrong with her that's not normal, but to say it affected me or hurt damaged me would be complete BS. I'm somewhat proud of it though, like a badge of honor no one believes to see. I lost my virginity to a teacher in high school. She was my English teacher freshman year, and it was her first year teaching. She paid extra attention to me, and would always lean in over my desk to talk during quiet reading time. One day she wore a very deep V-neck shirt and no bra. I told her I could see down her shirt. I was an awkward kid, and she told me she knew. I slept with her the next week. Literally the best sex I had up until I met my wife. Definitely recommend it. Why stop at teachers? The entire education system has ducked me. D. I had sex with my TA while in university. I know that this doesn't count, but she was super hot and I just wanted to brag about. Also, she was super hot, and I had sex with her. This girl I went to school with kissed our young cool teacher while she was in school. Then they eventually had sex. They ended up dating and getting married after she graduated though. They've been together over 10 years with a happy family and it. I've never known a sleazy situation to turn out so tasteful in the end. He just happened to find the one sitting in his classroom. Of course, their official story is that they didn't do anything until after she graduated and turned 18. It was kind of weird because she was the teacher's pet and we'd joke about them messing around. But they actually did it. Throwaway. A currently ongoing situation which I like but am also feeling super itty about. Not technically a student, but he's my mentor. A big name in my field. And 40 years my senior. I'm in a relationship. He's been married longer than I've been alive. Everything started normally enough. He brought me on because of my interest in our shared field at an event we both attended a few years ago. He has made my interest grow by orders of magnitude because he's the best teacher and we have the exact same type of humor. Mentor-mentee relationship turned more toward friendship, and then about a year ago I realized I had feelings for him. Then I realized he was acting a bit different around me. We would hug before I left. I only see him once every few months and work there for a week or two. And one time he kissed me, which kind of cemented things. He told me he thinks about what might happen between us. We've only kissed a couple of times and I know we both want more. But we both know what's between us is wrong, so nothing more has happened. Ugh. I feel like a terrible person. But at the same time I feel like I'd be missing out on being with such an overall amazing man. So right now we are trying to work together and ignore what we have, but there's clearly a lot of tension and for me it's getting painful knowing we can never be together. Also more and more painful having to regularly interact with his wife. He's never met my so. Nobody will see this probably, but I needed to get it off my chest. I don't believe a single post in this thread. Not quite on topic, but a history teacher at my old high school was banging one of his students and proposed to her shortly after she graduated. They're married now with a kid, both teaching at the same high school where she was his student. This'll get buried. But a male teacher at my school asked out a friend of mine at prom in front of other students. That much was common knowledge, but known only to a few is that they ended up dating. And yes, having sex. Used to roleplay a student teacher. Wasn't even the first student he'd dated from the school. His ex-wife was a student at the school he taught at previous to mine. It started when she was 15 if you believe her family. He recently was acquitted of raping a student who ended up suicidal and told staff at a new school, and is now being heralded as an exemplary teacher and a victim of evil little brats and a witch hunt. They're raising money for him to rebuild his life. A girl who killed herself had been taken under his wing in the months before and he was giving lots of pep talks to her at lunchtime. Make of that what you will. Coincidence, or a factor to be through on. Considering habitual grooming of students, nobody cares. because he comes from a wealthy family and knows lots of people in the media who write lovingly and of course without bias about how he is a wonderful man. Nobody even cares that he is known to have married a student, and thus clearly has at least one record of fraternizing with students. When I think back to how helpful and thoughtful and charming he was to me, I want to scrub my skin raw. He is free to teach. I pray to God that he doesn't pick yet another girls' school to dote on. I was the product of a student-teacher relationship. My mom was introduced by her friend to her professor, my dad, while they were dating. She took classes under him. Doesn't really count as much, but they were basically set up. Why are there this many people that can answer this question? Freshman year of college, I was handling the loss of my father horribly and started struggling with my classes. I went to my English professor's office one day for guidance about an assignment, and we ended up talking about life. She confided in me that she was struggling with a messy divorce. The office visits became routine and the highlight of my school day, where we just entertained and consoled each other through whatever life was throwing at us. We developed an intense mutual attraction, and then finally near the end of the semester, she invited me over for a home-cooked dinner while her kids were away. We drank wine with dinner and ended up snuggling and tickling each other on the couch, which turned into making out, and then I carried her to her bedroom and we had sex. I'd only had sex once before that, when I lost my virginity during the summer break after HS graduation. But what I lacked in experience I made up for with stamina and enthusiasm. I remember googling how to please an older woman days before the big night. She was very nice about my inexperience though, and ended up teaching me a lot about ducking over the course of several months. We kept things on the down low, naturally, and never became a real couple. She met and fell in love with a pilot and married him, but we still message each other once in a while. She was 39 and I was 18 the first time we had sex. Her friendship played such a major role in my coping with my father's loss. I will always treasure how we were able to support each other during that difficult time. I never ducked a teacher, but I tried. Mr. Blem. Ugh, he was so sexy. He was, guys, I'm gonna quit teaching and become a firefighter hot. Anyway, I would always sit in the front row, wear a tiny skirt and a cute thong, and purposely make sure he could see them. I wanted to duck him so bad. I'm sad it never happened. I still fantasize about it. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos.